Well, Greg, it looks like it's noon on my watch, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. I see there's still people logging in here, but I do want to welcome everybody to our Dairy Goat webinar series. And today's topic is going to be making the most of your dairy goat records with PCDART. So my name is Jennifer Bentley, and I work with ISU Extension and Outreach as a dairy field specialist housed in Northeast Iowa. And I am joined by my colleague, Fred Hall, who's also a dairy field specialist out in Northwest Iowa. And he's going to help facilitate some of the Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping things as you look at the screen here. Just making sure you mute your microphones during the part of the presentation. But if you have questions during the webinar, feel free to put those into the chat box and we'll address those either as maybe Greg sees those questions come in, or we can address them at the end as we take all those questions. This webinar is going to be recorded, so we will record it and archive it. So it will be housed on our Dairy Extension Dairy Goat page if you want to review it again. Once I get it recorded, I will email it back out to the group. So if you want to share that with others, you're more than welcome to. There won't be any, I guess, PDFs for today's presentation or any other additional resources as we go along here, but maybe Greg has some resources he want to share from their website that may be helpful as we talk about record keeping. And so after the webinar, also in the chat box, I'm going to put in an evaluation link. And if you wouldn't mind clicking on that link at the end of the webinar here today, that just helps us with our dairy goat programming as we look into 2022 and look at different topics that we want to address coming up in dairy goat education. We welcome your thoughts about our webinar series. So I do want to welcome Greg Pallas here today. He is the manager of User Support Services, Dairy Records Management Systems based in Ames at Iowa State University. And Greg has provided numerous trainings on PCDART for management in dairy cattle. And today we've invited him to provide tips and tricks for PCDART, using PCDART as a way to manage the dairy goat herd as well. So similar records can be used for dairy goat herds in this PCDART system. But before I turn it over to Greg, I would like to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and just launch a few questions here just to get an idea of kind of what our audience is here today. And so Fred, are you able to see my poll question?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So those that are on the computer, you can certainly answer this question. What type of record keeping system do you use to manage your dairy goat herd or herds that you work with? So maybe you're not a dairy goat producer yourself, but you help producers with their dairy goat programs. So we'll give you a few more seconds to see where you're at here. So we have PCDART, or maybe you don't use a record keeping system at the moment. If you have another type of software program, you can type that in the chat box, or maybe you use paper records to manage your dairy goat herd. Give it a few more seconds here, and then I'll end the poll here. And you should be able to see where we're at with what people are using. So it looks like the majority on the call here today are using paper records to manage their dairy goat herd, followed by PCDART. There are some others, and if you look in the chat box there, it looks like we had some people say they use an Excel and link to cloud documents. So thanks for participating in that one. And then I'm going to share another poll question here. So the next one, I just want to get a feel for what area of the dairy goat industry you are in. So whether you're a producer, employee, a hobbyist, part of the industry, student, veterinarian, nutritionist, maybe you're just interested in dairy goats and want to get more information. If there's something I don't have listed, feel free to also type that into the chat box. looked like we had quite a few states represented here today on our webinar. So it's just good to see what part of the industry everybody is working in within the dairy goat industry. All right, looks like the majority have voted here. So I'm going to share that. So we got about 61% are producers here on the call, followed by hobbyists, a few industry, a few people that work on dairy goat farms, nutritionists, and possibly other. So if you got other and you want to type what part you're working in, you're more than welcome to do that. So Greg, I hope that helps you get an idea of what our representation is here on the webinar. And with that, I'm going to let you can start sharing your screen and take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Jen. So yes, as Jen had indicated, we work with PCDART. PCDART is a dairy software product that Dairy Records Management Systems has developed in conjunction with their DHIA record processing. So we use PCDART to send the data to us. A lot of the technicians do, and a lot of producers as well. Currently, we have about 60 goat producers who are using PCDART as their herd management tool. And those herd sizes range from 1 doe to, we have one herd in California that has 1,700 does that is using PCDART. So of course, most of them, the average herd size that we have is about 65 does. So one way to, since some of you have not seen PCDART or are not familiar with PCDART, just to give you a general overview of what PCDART has. First place we start with is what we call our doe page. Just kind of want to let you know the PCDART was initially developed for dairy cow herds. Then we started getting a few goat herds that thought they would be useful. So you'll see several screens that may refer to cow or as opposed to doe, but the same information is available. And so just going to give you an idea as far as what each of the segments of PCDART is. We'll just start with a kind of show you what the doe page looks like. So this is the general overview of PCDART. We have the ID information listed here of the animal, the sire, the dam, maternal grand sire, what lactation number she's in. And then over on the right, we just have some general information as to where she currently is at. Currently, she's 96 days dry. She's been bred 177 days. Obviously, this is an overdue one. The data is a little bit old, so that's why she's listed as overdue, and she currently is dry. If we look at a different animal, we will see the production data down here on her last test. So the next tab is a custom tab, is one where you can design your own. Then we have a status tab. So the status tab lists all the information that's happened on this animal since it was been in the herd. We have it from when she was a doeling to the first freshenings, when she was bred, when she was dried off, and when she freshened again, whether she had a female or a male. Any idea of the offspring will be listed there, and what her current status is. The next test tab is their test day. So these are the individual test days for each test that this animal has had. Her current lactation, she's currently in her third lactation, and she was tested, the first test was at 60 days, 123, 177, so on. And these are her prior lactations. And you can see that she has been in milk for a long period of time. The second lactation was actually was milking for several years all the way through. So the fourth tab is just some ID, some genetic information. We do send all of our DHI records to CDCB, where they will do the genetic evaluations. They will then provide us back the PTA values for the animal, the sire and the dam, once they also go through some genetic evaluation. So the next tab is the lactation totals. So these are just each freshlings that we have, the age of each freshling, and any complete lactations that we'll have. A 305 is kind of the cutoff that we have, and then they're complete. As you can see, some of the information varies from a lot of different does. If we look at the next one, this may be a little more consistent, although she was in milk for a long period of time on her third lactation. So we just have her total days in milk, total milk, fat, protein, and then down here, we have how many days open she was during that lactation, a rating. So what a rating is kind of compares that individual animal with her herd mates. So other does in the herd that happen to have kid around the same time frame. Smaller herds, basically you're comparing with the entire herd. Larger herds, we try to break them up to animals that kid around the same time frame. With goats being seasonal, a lot of those does are going to be kidding about the same time as their herd mates. Then we have what we call a 305 ME values for milk, fat, and protein. And what the ME value does, it equates all the animal to a primarily a second and older lactation group. So you can compare an animal that happened to be very early on her first lactation with an older doe that's maybe in her third or fourth lactation, and try to do that comparison. And the same, and then so we projected to what she would have produced if she was at a mature age. The herd mate difference for milk, fat, and protein takes that ME value here and then it compares it to other her herd mates that happen to have kid around the same time frame. The next tab is a user-defined field. And so this is where you can kind of create your own these fields here, this first 10. If there's something unique that we don't keep track of, you can kind of create your own user-defined field there. Also, if you happen to do body condition scores, you can keep track of body condition scores. We'll also plot her current lactation and to see where, so if we go through, we can see where she happens to have changed throughout her lactation. The next tab is life notes. So this is just a card that you can kind of type in here whatever you want. Maybe she was grand champion at the Iowa State Fair, or something along that line. So you can just kind of keep special notes cards on here instead of keeping a diary someplace else. And the last one is chores. So, and we'll get into the chores and the health program. So the chores is just information where an animal has been assigned to maybe a protocol, maybe as a vaccination protocol. And this is something, what we call chores, that she needs to have done to her. And it can be in the future, or it will also list any chores that haven't done in the past. Those chores will also be listed on the status tab here as you record them. So that's just kind of a quick overview of some of the data that PCDART will store, and you can use as much of it or as little of it as possible. This particular herd uses the minimal amount, but just kind of give you ideas for what information you can be stored. Okay, when you open up PCDART, this is kind of the quick overview that we show. Over on the right, we have how many animals are currently in the herd. This herd has 61 animals. 59 of them are currently in milk, and they have 2 dry does at this point in time. 45 of the does are currently open, and 16 are reported as being bred. We have 66 replacement doelings in the herd. 16 of those are bred right now. And then we have 11, in this case it says bulls, but these would be young bucks that are currently in the herd. We have 3 tabs over here. So this is what we call in heat in 7 days, dew in 7 days, or dry in 7 days. And those number of days can be modified. All you need to do is do a right click, click on options, and maybe we just want to see the animals that are due maybe in the next 30 days, and maybe those animals that need to be dried off in the next 30. So now we can see these are all the animals that are either overdue or are due to kid in the next month or so. If you click on the test day statistics, this is the information that was on last test day. This herd's last test day was November 5th. And so this is their DHI records that this herd processes through us. PCDART herds do have to process through DRMS, and we are the largest processor of goat records. And so you can see on November 5th how many animals that they had, what their average production was, and the relevant herd average. You can go back to prior tests if you want to see what the information was in May, for instance, and what that data is. So that's what the test day statistics indicates. Also on the information today, if you click on the 61, it will give you some basic information about the animals, the bar name, the group, status, the days of milk, date due. If you want to change or add anything along with that, you can click on the edit DBIs, and then over, and so you just kind of click in the area that you want to add additional data, and over on the right gives you some different tabs of information that you may want to try to find. Maybe we want to look at the current milk information. So we can just click on that and that will come over. If we click on the repro, maybe we want to look at the, we already have due date in there. So days carried kid. So that can be listed in there. So, or, other information, genetics, if you want to look at the PTA milk, for instance, we'll just click on OK, and then that information will just go ahead and populate. So once again, that is on our overview in the upper left-hand corner. If we click on the third icon, which is our overview, we'll bring it back here. And then anytime you can click on anything that's underlined, you can see what are the 2 animals that are currently dry and when are they due. So, or you can add additional information to see on that screen as well. Okay. So one of the strengths of PCDART is, of course, our report features. So if we click on the report icon, so when we open up PCDART, what you'll initially see is our standard reports, and these are reports that most of these reports have summary data, and these are all the standard reports for all types of herds that are on PCDART. A lot of them are test day related. And then our user reports. So our user reports are reports that you can create on your own. When you get PCDART, we do give you a bank of reports to kind of start with, and you can go ahead and modify those existing reports or add your own. So I happened, and then each of these little sections is what we call sets. And you can kind of create your own set, which is basically a report library that you use that are unique to you. So I've created this set that's called for this webinar today. So on here, we're just going to look at does to breed. So if I look at this report, I'll kind of show you as to how the report can be created and how you can create your own report. So I've got the title of the report you put up here. And I apologize that, as I mentioned, PCDART was originated for cow herds, and goat herds have found that it has been extremely useful for them. And so we haven't modified all the headings in there. So we just want to look at the lactating animals. And then on the left tab section here tells us what information do we want to look at on the report. And so as you start creating reports, you'll start knowing some of these numbers on your own. Or you can also look over here on the right are different tabs that you may want to add information. So on the lactation tab, just some data that's listed here. So these are animals that are currently open, and we pulled some different data in here, or you can also do a search. So if I want to add in here lactation number, I can click on the search button, start typing in lactation, and it will bring in all the DBIs, which we call database items, that have the word lact in it. So I can just click on that and the lactation number will come over. So once again, database items to list and report kind of gives you an idea as far as what information you're going to see once you look at the report. So our controls and filters. So our controls and filters tells us who do we want to see on this report? What type of animals, what is the criteria that we need to meet in order to come on this report? So this is our looking over our does that are currently open. So the first one that I'm listing is animals that have never been bred. So I put times bred 0 to 0. So then I also want to look at animals maybe that were bred but are now confirmed open. So I use this or statement, which means that the animals never been bred, or, and this is our repro code, and indicates that they're open. So I want to include animals that have been confirmed open that are listed on here. Or if you're not doing regular preg checks, you may want to look at animals that have gone way over their due date and never actually been confirmed that they're open. So I'm also going to include animals that are over 175 days since they've been bred. They should have kidded by now, so obviously they are no longer pregnant, but for some reason they weren't marked accordingly. So we're also going to include animals that have been bred a long time ago, but obviously are not. So once you kind of design your report, a lot of times what I'll do is preview it just to see if it meets exactly what I'm looking for. So here I have what group number she's currently in and the index. A lot of times, larger herds, the index and the bar names are the same. Smaller herds, the index is just a unique number to that animal that stays with that animal throughout her lifetime. Usually they don't get reused, excuse me, but that's how we actually keep track of the does. The bar name is a 7-character field that you can assign to the animal itself. So also on this report, I'm looking at previous test day milk, current test day milk, the day that she freshened, how many days open she has, if she's been bred at all, and her current repro status, her last bred date, when's the next time I should breed her, and if we have a breeding, when's the next time she should be expected to come into heat. And then we have our lactation number. So you can see a lot of these are does that should have been bred a long time ago, are in milk for a long period of time. And then we've got some of the ones that are most recent towards the bottom of the report. At the end, we have a list of how many animals are that need to be bred and what their average information is. So if I'm comfortable with that information, then I can go ahead and save that report and go from there. Okay, if I looked on that report, I would see that there is an animal that maybe I want to say, well, we're going to go ahead and breed. Okay. So now I'm going to show you how to actually record some breeding information on the animal. So a couple of different approaches that you can do. So the second icon is what we call our input desk. And these are all the different inputs that you can use for recording information. You can select the red box here and then put in the animal's index number if you want. You can also, if you're using bar names, then one way to change that to input is you can go to File, Program Setup. And so this kind of gives you some information as far as what type of your user is. And these are some different settings. Then you can go to File, Management option, and this Index Barn. So right now we have a listed by input by index number. You can switch it to input by bar name. And then instead of typing in the index number, you can just type the bar name of the animal in instead. I've got myself set for index number, so I'm going to continue to do by index number. But you can easily just switch this to bar name and then click on Apply Changes if you want. Okay. The other option is you can bring up the animal that you're going to breed. So let's say here's 187, and if you just have a one to do, this is the approach that I usually do instead of using the input desk. So I just bring up their individual doe page, click on the word input, and then click on bred. Okay. You can record service sire. So you can either do the registration number if you want, or if you have your bucks named, you can record the name. And then just go ahead and record the breeding date. So the triggers are times. So this is if you want to keep track of, most goat herds don't use this at all, but these are the triggers that you can use as to how did you know that this doe was actually in heat? What are some indications that she was in heat? So then we click on done, and now it will show that she's 14 days since she's been bred. And then here we'll see that this is her bred date on the main tab, and when she needs to be dried off and when she needs to be due. If we click on the status tab, we also see the breeding information listed here. So, okay, so that's how you would record breeding information on an animal that you may find on one of the does to breed. We can also create a report for the doelings to breed. So this we will select the heifer option or the young stock. Some information that we're going to look at, age of the animal, times bred. So our controls, we want to age in days. So any doe that's over 180 days, as far as old, we want listed on the report, and times bred is 0, or a doe that has been bred and currently confirmed open. So if we preview this, we can see that this is her current age, and we have age in months, and maybe we want to do age in days. So maybe this report isn't quite exactly like we want it, so we can close that. So instead of doing age, we're going to add age in days. So we're going to click on insert, and we're going to come over here and type in the word age. So here we have age in days at reference date. So now we'll see, does this report meet exactly what we want? Okay, so now it says that she's 602 days old, and here's some that are 204 days old. So these are some information that we currently have about the animal. And here's the sire ID and so forth, sire registration number. Some goats, we may have their name in there, but in most cases, unless they've actually gone through genetic evaluations, and we get that information from CDCB. And so a lot of times, all we will have on those sires is just going to be the registration number. So, okay, so now we indicate this report is kind of like what we want. So we're going to go ahead and save it and go from there. Okay, so that is information about the breeding, how to find animals that need to be bred and how to breed them. So the next one is we're going to do preg check. So what we have on this report is some information about the animal, how many days she's been open, times bred, last bred, days since bred. So our controls are repro code, not N. So we don't want animals on here that are confirmed open, not C. So the C means this is a repro called animal. In other words, we don't plan on breeding her. We've designated her as a call animal. As soon as she gets done milking, we're going to, she's out of here. Animals that have not been confirmed pregnant, because that's what we want to do, and animals that have been bred. So if we preview that, so this lists some information, days open. So these are animals that have been bred, quite a few. And then we put some underlines on here so we can take this as a worksheet to do our preg checks. So as we can see, there's a lot of several animals over here that are overdue. That may be because of the information is old, but we're going to go ahead and go with that. So the next thing, maybe we're going to do our preg checks, and let's say we're going to preg check several animals. So we did a bunch of preg checks. So we've got quite a few done. So instead of bringing up the individual doe page, we're going to click on the input desk. And this is the vet repro. And instead of going through one, we can click on the select animals before showing input form. So we're going to select that one. we're going to click on the vet repro check. So we can either pick them from here as the ones we want to do, or we can just key in the information. So we've got 112, 123, 196, 198, 83, and 81 that we're going to do. So we're going to do them individually. Okay, so 112 got brought up. Okay, and we did the vet check, let's say last Saturday. This particular animal is pregnant. So we put in the P and we click enter and it applies that. It automatically brought up the next animal. It filled in the same vet check date and it filled in the same repro code. So she was also pregnant. So all I need to do is click done. The next animal, same thing, except for she was actually pregnant with twins. So we can go ahead, we did the ultrasound, we noticed that she was twins. So these are their different repro code. So we can click on diagnose pregnant with twins. So that's going to help us down the road. And so 198, she was also pregnant with twins. Okay, 83, she actually came up open. And fanfare was also open. So now we've got the preg check information listed in there. If I happen to bring up 196, I'll see down here, she was vet checked, pregnant with twins. I also look on the status tab and it says vet check 1211, pregnant with twins to breeding on 1016. Okay, so that just kind of gets you information on how to get the information into the reports. Okay, so the next report is close up, those that are due in the next month. So if we look at that report, so we just have some information, current days dry, the days until due, date due. So we're looking at our control, any animal that's over 30 days due and due in the next 30 days. So I preview that. So here we've got a couple animals, Justo and Leona. We can go ahead and use those. That's ones that are due. So let me bring something up here. Okay. Okay, so if I look at my overview, let's say we actually missed one. We're going to go ahead and bring Belle in. I'm just going to, or well, let's do Athena. Okay, we had her breeding date wrong. She was actually due later on. So let's say I'm just going to go ahead. Whoops, wrong tab here. Let's do. Okay. I'm going to remove that vet check date. Okay, so fanfare here. Due on the November 18th. I'm going to go ahead and report her fresh. And right away, it brought up today's date. She was due November 18th. It told me that the breeding was not in the gestation range. So I'm going to go ahead and indicate that she actually kitted on the 17th. So it skips over then to the doling information. So I can indicate that she actually had twins. And I'm going to say twin kept females. Okay, The first one, I'm going to call index 1. Name is Fancy. I haven't assigned any ID to her. The next one is 2. And I'm going to call her Fanatic. And as you see, then the sire information, who she was bred to, automatically populates. And I click on Done. And now it shows that here she kitted on November 17th with Fancy and Fanatic. So I click on the status tab. It also shows that information with those index numbers. If I bring up the first one, here is Fancy. This is the breed, when she kitted, the sire, the dam, and the maternal grandsire. So that automatically will bring that information into the system. So as I mentioned, PCDART is, I know a lot of goat may have triplets or quads or more. So the freshening screen is basically has limits to just twins. So if you did happen to have a triplet, way that you would enter that in is you would enter that in as a click on the new heifer or doeling, give it an index number, give it a bar name, and I'm going to call it Fanny. And so the breed, so you can click on this magnifying glass and it will list all the dairy goat breeds. The birth date. So the sire ID, I'm just going to go ahead and call it Slate. The dam ID is Fanfare's dam ID. And dam index is 81. And bar name, maternal grandsire. So basically what you're doing is you're entering the same information on 3 as what you had on 2. The other thing, so we'll close this. So now if we bring in 3, so here's the same information. The other thing that you can do is if we go back to Fanfare, notice that it has here listed that she had twins. But she actually had triplets. So a lot of times what I will have people do is they can go to the input drop down and go to health and record what we call a health condition, but it's actually a comment. So if we click on this and we'll see the comment listed here, and we'll just say triplet index 3. And that was on November 17th. So now we'll see that the freshening November 17th at index 1 and 2, and also index 3. So that just gives you additional information. And so you do keep track of the fact that she did have triplets. Okay, reports. Back to reports. So that's how you get the information in. It's a great program to keep track of all that data. So the other thing that you might want to start working with is keeping track of health data. So if we go to the input desk and we look at what we call our health conditions. Sorry. We'll look over here, assign health condition. So these are all the health conditions that we can keep track of. and you can add more. We just give you a bank of them to start with, and you can go and just add additional health conditions as you go along. So let's say that we had a, let's bring up 161 here. And if we look at some information, this is what we call our test day data, and these are our cell counts. Now, I know dairy goat cell counts are typically higher than what you may have on a cow herd, but this doe does have a problem with high cell count. So she had mastitis. So I'm going to go up to input. I'm going to click on health conditions, and I'm going to click on mastitis and indicate that we are treating her. And you can put in here what you treated her with. If you're actually are treating with antibiotics, what type of antibiotic you may be using. And then you can go ahead and report the date that she was treated. Then if you look at her status tab, it will show that she had mastitis on November 28th, and she was treated with an antibiotic. So that kind of gives you some additional information as far as what's going on. The other thing that you can do is what we call chores. So if we go to our file menu and click on protocols. So this is what we call our protocols and chores. So this is where you can set up a schedule, or a lot of times on smaller herds, they may just do the chores. So chores are different events, things that you do to an animal. If you band them, if you clip them, dehorn, deworm, or actually do any vaccination at all. So I've got listed here a Clostridium CDT for your vaccination, which also includes some tetanus, and it's listed as a vaccination. So we can, to get that information in there, you can click on Create New Chore, and I'm just going to go ahead and put the chore in as I'm just going to say the word chore. And you put the description in there, maintenance, if there's any withholding for milk or meat, and then we're going to save the new chore. So the protocols is how you would actually set up a schedule. So for instance here, I've got a schedule as far as what happens when an animal is born. So the birth protocol is I dip the navel with iodine solution, and I'm doing a first day. On day 7, I'm going to dehorn them, and I've got a couple of weeks in order to get that kid dehorned. At day 21, I'm going to give them the Clostridium CDT. Once again, I've got a 2-week period to do that. And then at day 50, I'm going to give them the booster with the 2-week period. So that's just kind of gives you some information as far as how you can actually set up a vaccination schedule with that going on. So you can do your vaccinations whenever you want to do. If you want to do it, let's say we want to do a vaccination maybe 4 to 6 weeks prior to when those does are due. Maybe you want to do them with that Clostridium CDT. So we can create a protocol. It's called Expected Fresh. We're going to create a new protocol. We're going to call it to kid. And we're going to give them that Clostridium CDT. We're going to do it once. So how many days prior to freshening do we want to do this? We're going to say 4 to 6 weeks. So our earliest time is going to be 6 weeks. So we're going to start at 42 days with a 14-day window. So that would mean any animal, when they will show up and to have that done. Okay, so that's how you would enter the chore in and how you would record the a protocol. So now this, so if we are looking at animals to do here again, so these are our animals that are due in the next so many time frame. So maybe we want to create a report of animals that are due. So we can create a new report. So we're going to put in there the barn name and the index number. We're going to do the due date. So we're going to do both how many days and also the due date. Okay. So these we want to go, we'll just say the next 50 days. Well, let's just go to the next 100 days. Okay, so on this report, we're just going to require the animals to be pregnant because we're doing our preg check on these animals. So we're making sure that they are pregnant. Or if we happen to have missed those or what, we can say if they're due in the next 100 days. We're going to say overdue 100 days. Let's see how many animals we have. Okay, we have 13 animals on this report. So we're going to save that. Okay, so this is our dose to kid in the next 100 days. So here we have their how many days till due, and here we have our date due. So we're going to go ahead and enroll them on that protocol that we just created. So we can either preview it and just write their numbers down and put them in there. I'm also going to use temp group, which puts them into a temporary group. I'm just going to use temporary group 5. So now we're looking at these 13 animals and they're in temp group 5. So I close that. I'm going to go to my input desk. I'm going to enroll them in the protocol. Temp group 5. Oops. Let me see. Oh, my expected fresh protocol does require them to be pregnant. So I'm going to go ahead and record them all pregnant first. And we'll say, okay, so now we can do our protocol enrollment. And here's our 2 kid. Kind of tells you what's going on with the animal, and we're going to go ahead and enroll them. There. So now these animals are enrolled. You can also bring them up individually. And here's we see that she's enrolled in this protocol. So you can do the input and then protocol enrollment. So either approach, you can work with that. So now that just says that she needs to be enrolled. She is enrolled in the protocol. If we click on our chores tab, and it shows that she needs to have the Clostridium CDT somewhere between February 9th and February 22nd, because she is not due until March 23rd. So then it will just kind of bring up a reminder on one of our standard reports. If you happen to use the standard reports of this here, any animals that need to have anything done will show in here. None of those animals are due soon enough to have that be recorded. Okay, so that's how the health data, and you can make the health data as minimal or as much as you want to keep track of. So the other reports we want to look at is just production. So let's look at production information on the animals. So we've created this one here, just looking at our production data, some change, or cell count data. So if we preview that, just kind of see if there's any animals, how the animals are doing, how they change from the prior tests, if there's any you see with the big changes. If there is some of the big changes, you may want to look and see, okay, they dropped down quite a bit. What's happening? Is she sick from last test, or what else is going on? So that can be helpful and bring it to your attention as to what's going on with those does. And you can put as much information on here. We're just controlling on does that have production. So that's what our current milk, at least 1 pound. Okay. We can kind of also create kind of a mini report. So a lot of producers will get monthly reports back with their DHI records, but you can kind of create your own report and put as much information on there as you want. Here we have a whole gambit of information. So if we preview that, and you can see we can make it landscape. So if we preview this is still cutting off. So all we need to do, we can change the font of our report to a smaller font. And now if I preview it, we see all the information. So instead of having your report come back, you can get this at any time. Just some data about the what group she's in, the breed, barn name, production data, her current status, cat or freshening date, days of milk on test day, some repro data that's listed here, due date, days carried kid, once again her last status, current days dry if you want. So that's just a mini monthly report. The 800 reports are reports that are based upon test day. So as you can see, you can change and look at prior test day information. So if you're getting reports back to us, a lot of them, herds will get the herd summary report back. And this is kind of similar to the herd summary, just broken up into 4 different reports. So if we preview this report, a little bit bigger, there again, some of the information is a little bit skewed for dairy goats, but we can kind of get some ideas as far as the current repro status of the herd on last test day, the kidding interval, number of days open. These are all her last test days in the last year. Number of kiddings by month, number of pregnant animals, number of breedings. This is the dry information, average dry days between lactations, the stage of lactation, udder health. We look at that. So this has us broken down by a number of does in milk, 1 to 40, 41 to 100, and so forth, and how many does in each of the lactation breakouts and those stages, what their average production is, what what their cell count information is, and how many are what we call infected. Anything that's above 200,000, as I mentioned, for does, this is a little bit higher than, or a little bit lower than what you would expect, because goat cell counts are generally higher than cows. So you will have on the average a higher cell count average. Similar information. This just includes fat and protein tests, a number of animals by lactation, average age of each of those lactation, peaks, milks, MEs, and this is where you, and this is a great herd because your younger group should be your best producers. So therefore, when we're looking at a mature equivalent, it's adjusting them by how old they are. So in this case, our younger group is our best producers, our second lactation is our next group, and our older group is our lower producers. So this group is making the advancement genetically, so that's really nice to see. Also, when you look at difference from herd mates, the same thing is what you should be seeing. This is the rolling herd average. 2,080 pounds is the rolling herd average for this particular herd, 71 pounds of fat and 16 pounds of protein. And the last one is just the identity and genetics. How many does, how many doelings they have by different ages, what their average ages is, number identified by sire and dam. This herd does a really good job identifying their animals, and parent average or PTA dollars. The birth summary may not be as complete since you do have a lot of triplets, but this is going to give you how many males, how many females are recorded. Okay, so that is a general overview on how to use PCDART and how to keep track of records, how to set up a health program. We went over an hour, so that's about what time frame we are looking at. If you want additional information about PCDART or DHI in general, if you go to our website, which is www.drms.org. If you currently are on test with us, you can log in with your herd code and rack number, and there are a lot of short videos on PCDART, tips on how to use PCDART. We do have what we call a Tip Tuesday. I think a lot of you are receiving that Tip Tuesday, and that's how you sign up for this webinar. But all past Tip Tuesdays are also listed there. And of course, if you ever have any questions, please feel free to contact us directly. Okay, Jen, I will turn it back to you.
All right, well, thanks, Greg, for all that great information. I think you gave us a lot of good tips and a lot of good reports that I feel like would be very useful. And, you know, we only had an hour, so it's a lot of information to get through. So this will be recorded, and I'll send it out later, and you'll be able to review it again as you want to, you might want to take some time to kind of walk through your own PCDART program and be able to generate some of those reports. But I did go ahead and put the evaluation link in the chat box. So before you log off today, if you wouldn't mind clicking on that link, that'll take you to a Qualtrics evaluation that'll help us with our dairy goat education programming here in the upcoming year. There are a few questions, Greg, that came in the chat box that we can kind of go through.
Okay. Sure.
One is here, can you enter linear trait scores?
So we don't have any way to enter in the linear traits directly, but that is definitely an area that you can use what we call our user-defined fields. So you can set them up. If you go to the input desk, here's a assigned titles for user-defined fields. So it depends upon how many traits you want. You can have each user-defined field maybe a different breakdowns. So you can put it in there. And then this will stay on the animal and you can update it as you want. So user defined fields would be one of those areas that you can use for recording linear traits.
Great. And the next question actually came from myself. I put in the chat box. When you were pulling up that dry does close-up list, when that pulls up those pregnant animals, does it also list the ones that are pregnant, like, or pregnant with twins? Like, would it give the PW on there?
Yeah, if I were to include a couple of different, that's be a good addition to in here. So I can go ahead and list in here pregnant with twins. So if we did have anybody that were pregnant with twins, it would list in here and it would say yes.
Okay, so you do have to enter that in.
Yep,
That
would be a good addition to report, especially for goat herds.
We've got a couple more questions. Are there plans to add the breeds recognized at CDCB, but not yet available in the drop-down menu?
Yes, we are adding additional with our, what we call our 719 version. We're adding additional breeds as well if they're recognized at CDCB, and that's where we get our breed designations from.
Another question is, if you purchased an animal who's enrolled in another herd, what's the procedure to enroll that purchased animal in your herd?
Good question. So we're going to go ahead and enter a new animal. So I'm going to go ahead and give her index 55. So once you put the new animal in, here is a box that says transfer credits from another herd. You check that box, you put the herd code where that animal came from, and then the index number. Whoops, I'm sorry. So this would be the registration number, and down here is where you would indicate the old herd code and then the old index number. So when the herd is processed, we will get that information. We will go to this old herd code, the old index number, and then we will transfer those records directly over. So up here would be the registration number, if there is one, and then down here is the old herd code, old index number, and then the animal will be listed.
Okay, early on in one of the sheets you'd pulled up, you had the rating, and the question is that a genetic index or is that a production index?
The rating is a production index. We talked about the ME values. So we're looking at the ME values on a, what we call an energy corrected milk status, in which it kind of includes fat and protein as well as milk. And so that's looking at her current lactation and seeing where she is compared to the average for the herd. So an A rating would be that she's in the top, I believe 90 percentile for the herd, and then we just drop them down from there.
Okay.
So if you have a smaller herd, the ratings probably are going to be pretty wide. So probably would not use ratings on smaller herds.
Okay, I think I've got one last question. Is there a plan to add the preg checks with multiple kids and the number they kidded without having to go to multiple screens to add a note?
So the preg checks, you'll do pregnant with twins, and whether it's twins or triplets, I think you're going to manage them the same way. And then, but at the kidding screen, the freshening screen, yeah, that's where we would have to add the triplet options or quads options. I think that is on our list, but it won't be in our next release though.
Very good, Jen. I believe that's all the questions I've got, unless you see something else coming in.
I don't. I think we covered all the questions here in the chat box, and we're just getting done just a few minutes early, but that's okay. Want to thank Greg for being on the webinar here today. A lot of great information. Again, I did also list the DRMS website in the chat box too for people that may want to go check that out or are unfamiliar with that. And then again, please fill out or click on the evaluation link before you log off here today. And we appreciate you listening in, and we will keep you up to date on upcoming webinars here in 2022 with the Iowa State University Extension and Outreach Dairy Team. So thanks again, Greg and Fred, for being on the call, and everybody have a great day.